has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
We're back with another episode of the Fan Awakens. This is episode 8 with Ian G at the mic. How you doing, G? We're back in a galaxy far, far away, all the way from home. How you doing?
Who are you?
I don't know.
Wow. I was like,
nobody.
oh wow. I'll give you that one.
Thanks. But this is episode 8, coming off the heels of what I think was our best episode of all time, episode 7. I still want to actually dive deeper into the conversations we had in that episode, but I guess we'll probably fit that in to another episode. We'll see. There's just so much speculation for episode 9 I still want to get into, but it's episode 8. Episode 8, The Fan Awakens. Would that have been a cool title for episode 8? Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and then episode 8, The Fan Awakens.
How would episode 9 go?
The fan sleeps.
Wow. That's
Well,
all
what
I
if
can
it
say
was
to
like
that.
really basic, like episode 7, The Force Awakens, episode 7, The Force Awake. No, episode 7, The Force Awakens, episode 8, The Force Awake, episode 8, The Force Sleeps.
Wow. I don't know if Bob would take that into
Forget Bob. Here's what's gonna happen. Like we go through this journey. At the end, it's Rey. She does some mantis powers and puts her hand on Kylo Ren and just goes sleep. He falls asleep, and they just kind of like it's on Mustafar again, but they finish the job. They push him into the lava all the way. They roll him in. They don't leave him there for someone to come save him.
What if they have some sort of technology that can still get him going?
Well, no. They're like really gonna put him in there and use like a stick to make sure he's all dissolved.
Okay, well.
It might be rated R. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a bit extreme.
But we got some cool topics. Some things that aren't necessarily surprising on the surface, but the farther you dig into it, it's actually pretty interesting. The Mandalorian made their cast official, which seems like it already happened, but official said that Pedro Pascal is the lead role, and they announced the larger overall cast of The Mandalorian. Making it official, Pedro Pascal will be joined by Gina Carano, Giancarlo Esposito, which is a huge pull. That he adds a lot to the cast,
Yeah.
being in one of the greatest television shows of all time in an integral role. He was in Breaking Bad as what was the place called?
Oh yeah. It had
Los Hermanos?
Yeah, Los Pollos Hermanos.
Los Pollos Hermanos, there you go. Yeah, he ran that joint, and so it's exciting to see them get a guy like him. We have Emily Swallow. My personal favorite in the list, Carl Weathers. Apollo Creed is joining a galaxy far, far away. I am pumped over that. We got Omid Abtai, I think that's how you say his name. The interesting thing about him, that's the one that pulls the most intrigue from this list. He actually played a Mandalorian named Amos in the Clone Wars animated show, which also, as we know, Filoni ran that thing, and the producer and writer of The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau, also played a part in the animated show with the Mandalore storyline. He was in the storyline trying to save Duchess Satine and ultimately failed, but I think that's interesting because while this news doesn't necessarily confirm that he's going to be returning as that character, I think that I would bet money that if they're casting this guy who was previously in the show, The Clone Wars, in a show called The Mandalorian, where he played Mandalorian before, I think it's almost certain that he's going to be playing that same character.
Wow. I'm excited for him. Excited to see what that entails.
Yeah, and it's cool that this just, if it is true that he's playing that character, it kind of shows how much they're feeding into the overall story, the overall canon. They're using different threads that they already have laid out. There's going to be deep cuts for the fans. Like, it's a character that, we saw him years earlier in that show, so in this show, you're not going to have to have seen Clone Wars and that one storyline from it. But if you have, it's going to be a little extra incentive.
Yeah, and Star Wars does this so well for its fans. Those little deep cuts that, for those who have read the books or who have seen the shows.
They haven't really, held their end for the most part on that. There's been some stuff, and the books have some cool connections to each other, but within the actual films, and and live action content, they really haven't given us the connection that they sort of, well, Kathy Kennedy literally promised. So with this Mandalorian, I think that's where we're finally going to get those real deep cut connections.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exciting. But also we have Werner Herzog and Nick Nolte rounding out the cast. What do you think?
I'm excited for that. Finally we get the official list and to hear about, Omid and his possible, the fact that they brought him in and his whole thing with the being a Mandalorian in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like just seeing,
this cast is all-star.
Yeah, there's just the cast and then the direction, the money that they're getting from Disney.
It's all top tier.
Yeah, like
this is like if you pulled out like you got Phil Jackson to coach a team of Steph Curry, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, all in their primes.
Yeah.
And you it's like that wouldn't be able to happen, but it would because you got the Disney money.
Mm-hmm. I'm very excited to see Pedro Pascal. I'm just seeing his recent performance in Game of Thrones mostly for me.
Yeah, I started watching a little bit of Narcos to see his
the
Narcos Mexico to see him in that. Dude, he's great. Love him in Game of Thrones. He's terrific in Narcos. He's going to be terrific in this.
Yeah.
He was like my favorite part of Kingsman 2. One of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I really did enjoy that film. So this is just huge for me. This is insane.
And he seems like he's a great front runner.
Yeah, he's a lead man for sure.
Yeah. And then I think what's his name? Giancarlo
Esposito.
Yeah, to see, what kind of role he would play. I don't know.
And the thing that stands out to me too is we're getting a lot of people of color in this.
Yeah.
With a Latin lead,
Yeah.
We have, Giancarlo Esposito, Gina Carano, Carl Weathers, Omid Abtahi. These are all like people of color, and for something that Star Wars constantly sort of takes a little flack for. This is a big thing. This is huge. Having the first Star Wars live action show with so much money put into it, headlined by these people, is a good step, a step in the right direction. And I don't think this is by no way like a handout. These people are all extremely talented.
Exactly.
And deserving of these kind of roles. So that's really exciting for me. So yeah, I can't. Now this is another thing I like to always bring up Star Wars Celebration when we can. Imagine, dude. Imagine all those names we just listed off, all up there on stage at once. Because before we were thinking, man, if they have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, but imagine Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Pedro Pascal, Carl Weathers. Dude, if I could meet Carl Weathers. That's it.
What would you ask him?
I'd ask him, what if he would have thrown in the towel?
Oh. No. Wow, okay.
What if Rock would have called it?
You're really going to bring that up?
Yep.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm going to ask him if he wishes he could have been like a Force ghost in Creed 2. Like just sort of standing over his own grave smiling.
Wow.
He's like, I know you watch me, Dad. I love you. And he's like looking, then you just see Carl Weathers, Force ghost, standing there.
Yeah. It's like, just you bringing up that possibility of just seeing everyone there and just to see,
possibilities.
The possibilities of that possibly being there on stage and seeing all that passion. And
I don't think people understand. My heart needs help for this event.
And it's still a little hard for me to grasp the scale to which all these episodes are getting, the amount of like the passion behind all these episodes, the money that's put in there, that combined with, like you said, talented actors and actresses. And so
filmmakers, actors,
producers,
writer. It's Jon Favreau, for God's sake.
Yeah. And so it's like when we see that, I'll see all that on stage possibly.
It's like, as a fan, you can do these like fantasy drafts. Like if you're just sitting around, we sit around all the time. Imagine if this person got to make a Star Wars show with these people, and like no matter what I did, it couldn't have been better than what we are actually getting. It's like this is like the fantasy of a fan. this is insane that this is actually real. Like, reading off these names every day, just understanding that this is actually happening.
Now, do you think we'll get something? You know, we'll get a little sneak
A celebration?
peek? Yeah.
Duh. We might get
A
an
sneak
episode.
peek? A trailer?
We might get an episode.
Oh yeah. Oh my
Might.
gosh.
Now,
yeah.
the thing is, I do think that this is going to premiere in the fall
Yeah.
because it'd be perfect, as we've talked about a little bit before, with Game of Thrones is actually premiering
Yeah.
either the week before or the week we're there, probably, at Celebration.
Yeah, in April.
Maybe the week after. But it's going to be around that time. So, and it's only 6 episodes that season, so 6 weeks. Then
Yeah.
there's nothing. There's no craze. Walking Dead is kind of coming back, but I think it's still just a niche audience. It's nowhere near what it was, no matter what.
Yeah.
They could have 10 out of 10 seasons. It's never going to recuperate to what it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones out. Mandalorian slides in, takes over the world.
Yeah.
That Disney already kind of has taken over. But my point is, I think that they're for sure either giving us like clips
Yeah.
and a trailer. They're giving us good stuff. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, just let alone like, you know, seeing all of them on stage, and then for us to see a possible, you know, episode.
Actually,
Like, if it was like an episode, you know, you saying that there's only like
Yeah.
6.
no, I'm talking about for Game of Thrones.
Oh, Game of Thrones. Yeah,
for The
that's-
Mandalorian, there's going to be a 10 episode season.
Yeah, and so yeah, I would be good either way, whatever we get.
Now, what if they pulled a Loki? I'm just going to call it that there's a possibility. What if they pull a Loki at Comic-Con? Pedro Pascal comes out in full Mandalorian costume. That place would erupt.
I'm sure. Yeah, I don't think there's. Yeah, he could do that.
Yeah,
But-
why not?
Yeah, because I'm like, you know, like I think it was like in the past with Mark Hamill. Sometimes like, he went as like a stormtrooper.
Yeah, but I'm talking about that's like regarded as the greatest Comic-Con moment of all time by a lot of people. Hall H.
Oh yeah.
Nobody was expecting it. It's the Avengers. And Tom Hiddleston comes out dressed in full Loki costume.
as a Loki.
As Loki.
Yeah, he was taking over
Insane.
the crowd.
And that's the I mean, dude, Pedro Pascal can pull that off. And the thing is, he doesn't even have to pull anything off. He just has to come out and take off the helmet.
Just pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And this,
So I'm pumped. I'm really pumped. But we got something else that got me incredibly hyped. I'm going to move these topics around a little bit. I don't know what I was doing writing this down, but Mark Hamill has said recently that most of his filming for episode 9 is yet to come. What do you think about that? Because they're pretty deep into the production at this point, as far as shooting goes. So what it appears to be is that his filming is going to be all sort of loaded at the end. It must not be anything too strenuous.
yeah.
Probably almost completely all dialogue. Maybe his biggest stunt is like him lifting both thumbs like Yoda did. But he's going to do 2 thumbs, and that's going to like ignite the fire that will burn down. That will burn the First Order to the ground.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think about that, Mark Hamill?
Yeah, like they started production, when? Like earlier this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
A month or 2 ago.
yeah, this movie comes out in December. Yeah, I would say the same thing in terms of, yeah, perhaps his
He doesn't have to have that workout regimen
Yeah,
he had
that-
for
yeah, I mean he was doing a lot in episode 8.
Yeah,
like,
he was.
yeah, walking around doing all his stunts, and yeah, to see him get his, you know, stuff filmed at the end is intriguing in the most part, and you know he could, lift, like you said, lift rocks.
They
or
were
something.
filming by August 1st.
Filming by August 1st.
So it must be, I mean, this is a huge production. And this actually, so it's interesting that Mark Hamill's saying this. I think it's exciting that he still has more to do and all. Clearly, he's done a little bit, clearly, as
Yeah.
he's stating. But I also think that with the Mark Hamill stuff, they're probably going to try and keep that under the most wraps. Like, the least amount of people there, just to avoid any spoilers coming out as far as what he's doing
Mm-hmm.
and the capacity he's going to have.
Yeah.
Also, with him being a Force ghost, I don't know if they're necessarily going to film him with everybody else on the scene, or they're just going to input him. Who knows? There could be someone else on the set, like, reading for his lines.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They could always do something.
Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then insert him as a Force ghost later. I don't know. J.J. Abrams, in J.J. we trust. And that leads me to my next topic, which I'm beyond thrilled to talk about. And in J.J. we trust. This interview had me thinking perhaps J.J. Abrams for president. Kevin Smith got to visit the episode 9 set and got to watch what he said was nothing short of like a spectacle. Because he's a director and he talks about, he's a director. He said watching J.J. Abrams, he's like, I learned lessons, man, watching that guy direct. He said that what JJ's doing, first off, he said he was there for a big set piece and all. Biggest set he's ever seen in his life. By far. And he's been on other sets, he's been on big sets. He said he's never seen a set this large. He said that J.J. Abrams directing this film feels like he's directing a small country.
Wow.
It's massive. The scale of this film is hitherto undreamt of.
Oh my gosh. Did you just say hitherto undreamt of?
Are you seriously leaning on the cauldron of the cosmos?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's just, what we have is we see the documentary and then we can see it. We pick apart and see what he does behind the set.
Dude, this is like a $300 million film.
Yeah, and he's done episode 7 and now I'm sure he's learned a lot of lessons from that.
Of course.
Him. And now that he's learned a lot from that and for him to now implement it, I can only imagine what
the scale of this thing is. Just, I know it's Star Wars, but I don't know, just to hear this stuff from Kevin Smith, not that he's a guy that necessarily directs like blockbusters and all, but he knows it. He's been on those sets.
Yeah, and he's a huge fan.
Yeah, and he's been around, superhero films. So he knows what like a tentpole blockbuster looks like. Yeah. And this is just on another scale from what I've got from his interview.
But now what does that make you think now after hearing his reaction?
It doesn't necessarily do anything for me because my excitement is already hitherto undreamt of. Okay. But it doesn't hurt.
Yeah. It just reassures the fans and just perhaps gets them more excited to see what these big sets and, all these things that JJ has.
What planets are we going to be on? Are we returning to a planet? Are we getting a new planet? Obviously, we're getting new planets.
Yeah.
We don't know if we're returning to any. I will say I would hope we return to at least one that we've seen before. What it is, I don't really care. I just want to see an old planet. Give me Kashyyyk. Give me Tatooine. Nah. We can stay away from Tatooine.
Volusia?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. But, yeah, just hearing that, I could only imagine what he's, to actually be on set and to see, managing a small country, like the amount of people.
Kevin Smith cried. I would have cried. Are you kidding me? He said watching JJ do his thing it's crazy.
I know, and I remember in an interview when he was talking about, I think it was in like the Stephen Colbert show, he was talking about, when Stephen Colbert asked him like,
talking about JJ?
Yeah, he was interviewing JJ and he asked him like, as a kid, as a young JJ, what would he have thought if he was in charge of Star Wars? And, JJ was skeptical at first when he was asked that question. And now look at him, 2 of them. And now he's bringing it home.
People are going to rally around this one.
Yeah, I can,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think even a lot of the episode 7, I think a lot of the people who were sort of anti-episode 7, most of those people didn't like episode 8.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, and this isn't talking for myself, it's just people I've had discussions with, things I've seen online. I think a lot of them are sort of like, after episode 8, they're like, episode 7, that wasn't that bad.
Wow.
I think it's... I had to catch myself there. I think it's fantastic. That's the F word I was looking for. Okay. Also, I've been watching all the Star Wars pretty heavily.
Yeah.
These last, well, I always do, but more than usual this last month. And one thing that really does stand out to me, and I'm not knocking any films here, but when you watch episode 8 and episode 7, something that really stands out is, and I've watched both the documentaries recently, The Director and the Jedi and then the making of episode 7, which are both incredible. And I think anyone who hates like episode 8 or doesn't respect or think Rian Johnson's a hack, just watch the documentary.
Yeah.
If you still think he's a bad dude for making that movie, I don't know, just go sit in a ditch. I don't care. Just go cry to yourself. The guy's a good dude. But the art direction, that's what I'm getting to. The art direction on episode 7, I think is a big step beyond the art direction in Episode 8. I just think that Episode 7 captures the Star Wars feel and aesthetic incredibly well. It's impeccable how well the art department did and how well JJ filtered through the thousands and thousands of concept art he had, and picking and choosing the best ones. And that's not saying that Episode 8's art direction is bad. It's actually pretty great. But Episode 7 is it's perfect. Just when you're watching the film, it just feels like I just feel more immersed into the Star Wars world of it all. I don't feel as earthed. In Episode 8, there's a couple things that make me feel a little earthy, I don't feel that. And same thing with Solo. But I don't feel that at all with Episode 7.
Yeah.
I feel constantly like I'm in a galaxy far, far away.
Mm-hmm.
Like the casino in Episode 8 feels kind of Earth.
Yeah.
It feels really Earth.
I see exactly what you're saying.
And not just the casino, but the city in general. This feels like I'm in Italy or something,
Oh, yeah.
Monaco.
Mm-hmm.
But Episode 7, dude, I'm telling you, just pay attention to just every alien they have, every wall, the doors, the lights,
the settings.
The settings. It's just very Star Wars. Obviously it's called Star Wars, but I think that that's something that's overlooked in a lot of arguments and a lot of discussion is the art department. And especially when you watch the documentary and really see how much doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And that's all tough choices. There might be great stuff, just doesn't fit.
Yeah. And it's, always interesting to think that, I think we brought up the fact JJ has yet to finish or do a trilogy or have an end to one or something.
I think people overreact with that, but yeah.
And now here he is, bringing it home.
I think that's just because he's such a producer. I think he likes to kick things off and then give other people opportunity. I don't think that's because because I hate when I hear people oh, he doesn't know how to close. He doesn't know how to, how do you know?
Yeah, he has yet to.
Why would he, just because he doesn't, it's every single film that man has ever made is pretty much great in my opinion. I think every film that he has made, in my personal opinion, is great. So what's the difference between him making the first or second in an installment and them being great? Why would you think that the third would be terrible?
Yeah. Or
he's not capable of making a third film or a closing film. I think that's absurd. I think is ignorant. Filmmaking is filmmaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good point about the art direction and the art styles that we see both in Episode 7 and 8. And it also shapes my views of those two movies as well. Because there are usually things that I distinguish between the two movies, but I really don't know what's the reason as to why I prefer one or the other. And that's a really good point that you bring up. Yeah, the whole earthy feel.
Yeah.
And it's it's true that it does. And a lot of the themes, although, they're part of Star Wars, about the war profiteering and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Those sort of conversations,
very,
I'm and the animals.
and I will say that some of the art direction in Episode 8 and some of the settings, I love Crate. I love Crate. That feels so Star Wars to me.
Was that Octu Island?
Octu is great. Although that was given to us by JJ, but still. Crate, I love. I love that. The
way they utilized it.
I love going to it in Battlefront too, although I hate playing on it because I think it's a terribly created map. The design of it is abysmal. It's horrendous.
You take that risk and just run straight
it's
in the open.
You can't do much.
Yep. Yeah.
Until you get inside, and then it just feels like Red Faction. I don't know. But the actual you get to see it a little bit in Leia, Princess of Alderaan, by Claudia Gray. There's a little plug for you. Go read that if you haven't, because it is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's just a small thing. I think I got one more topic I want to go over quickly before the end of the show. It's going to be kind of a short one today. Still, we got 30 minutes in, Claudia Gray.
Yeah, I was about to say that great segue.
Master and Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Her book that's releasing while we're going to be at Star Wars Celebration, conveniently listed here in 118 days, which will sneak up pretty quick.
Mhm.
What do we expect? Because I know you haven't personally read the books. I've told you some details about her novels,
Mhm.
but she has Leia, Bloodline, and
Lost Stars.
Lost Stars. All three are very coming of age stories. Some, like Leia, just takes place during Leia's like adolescence, like when she's a kid up to like 16. So a couple years before A New Hope. But Lost Stars takes place over an entirety of people's lives, basically. Like growing up until they're they're deep into adulthood.
Yeah.
And then Bloodline, she's just so great at capturing like anything really. I trust her to do anything. She can cover all areas of someone's life. So I think with Master and Apprentice, what do you expect? How young do you want Obi-Wan to be? How much do you want it to cover? Do you want it to be like I don't know. I think this is going to be crazy. It's going to make people appreciate the prequels a lot more as well, I think.
Yeah, to further, explore their relationship and, the master and apprentice relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I wouldn't know what to, I would want to,
Are we going to get youngling Obi-Wan?
I was about to say, like, when he first, like when he first when they first get into that,
Are we going to get Qui-Gon interacting with Darth Tyrannus?
I wouldn't know.
Are we going to get Count Dooku, like, while Count Dooku's still a Jedi,
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm saying, like, interactions between Qui-Gon and his master?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I would say I would...
Before he takes on Obi-Wan, or maybe while he's, he could still be taking on, who knows?
Yeah. Like, I would want...
And we're definitely going to get great Jedi Council stuff. We're going to get Yoda in there, I'm sure. Maybe some Mace Windu.
Ooh,
maybe
man.
some Coleman. Oh. That's what Claudia Gray needs to take up next.
Mm-hmm.
The Legends of Coleman Trebor.
Yeah, but what do you think? What do you think we could possibly get?
I think that chances are we'll start with Obi-Wan around, maybe not completely youngling. Maybe he's been Qui-Gon's apprentice for a little while. So maybe 14, 15, I think.
No, how old was he in Phantom Menace? He was pretty young. Looks pretty young.
I wish I knew that answer off the top of my head, and I'm really sad that I don't. But he wasn't a teenager. He was a Jedi Knight.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, he was still an apprentice, but he was pretty capable on his own. He was ready for the trials.
He was, yeah. Oh, yeah, the trials.
Yeah. Maybe we're going to get some training. I think it's great, though, that Claudia Gray gets this. She's such a fan, and she's so steep in the lore. We're going to get some great, like, Jedi conversation. I think this is a perfect book for that, because Qui-Gon, as many of us know, wasn't like the picture-perfect Jedi that Obi-Wan was, necessarily. Yeah. He questioned a lot of things. He sort of didn't always follow the code to a T.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's going to be really cool to delve deep into that relationship and how shaping Obi-Wan, like the lessons that he taught him. I just want to know, I don't even need action in this. We're going to get some lightsaber action. But it's going to be fun just to dive into those relationships. That's what Claudia Gray does.
Yeah, I was about to say, in that sort of sense, I think you've touched upon like how, she, when you read her books and then, you watch a movie, and then you learn the backgrounds of these characters. And I think you've spoken about Leia, like how much she's went very high on your list
on
now.
My list. She wasn't in my top 5 before I read Claudia Gray novels.
Yeah, and now to see, that was a good point in terms of bringing up what she could do for the character of Qui-Gon. And yeah, it's like to know that he wasn't quite, by the books. And, he questioned a lot of things. And now we could possibly see him and, with Count Dooku and all that sort of stuff.
What if, like, and this can spur, because I think a lot more people buy these books than people think, just off of their sales in general. But, man, this can spur a whole new campaign for that Obi-Wan movie.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure a lot of people still want that.
It's going to be incredibly exciting to read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to have it read before we get back. I think it comes out the last day of Celebration, but Who knows? I wouldn't doubt they do like an early release over there
Oh, yeah.
with like a signing.
Mm-hmm.
It would just make sense.
Yeah, I could see that. Probably hopefully read there's 3? Yeah, 3 books.
Yeah.
By that time.
Lost Stars, Leia,
Lost Stars is first.
Bloodline. They're all pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I read them in general, so that tells you something.
Oh my gosh.
No, Claudia Gray got me into reading. I've read other novels since, but I owe my love of reading A to Star Wars and B to no, I'll take that back. A to Claudia Gray, B to Star Wars.
Mm.
I wouldn't have picked it up if it wasn't for Star Wars, but I wouldn't have finished it if it wasn't for Claudia Gray.
There you go. That's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah. So thank you, Claudia. If anyone loves Star Wars, read those books.
Yeah.
And you can read all the other. I have other recommendations for you. Lords of the Sith is great. The second Aftermath book is pretty phenomenal. There's other options, but start with Claudia Gray. You won't go wrong there.
Yeah.
So I think that's the show, man.
Yeah.
That's the show. Episode. Let me check.
Is it episode 8? I thought it was episode 9.
Episode 8.
Is it?
Yeah, judging by this paper. If it's episode 9, it's episode 9, but I think it's episode 8. We're just going to roll with that for now because, who's going to tell me it's not? You? Yeah, maybe, but...
Yeah.
Episode 8. It's episode 8.
All right.
Well, with that, I'm E, that's G. G, you have anything you want to say before we sign off?
Possibilities.
All right. Episode 8 is done. Goodbye.